Good evening. Welcome to Thursday evening here at Live on Purpose, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I love being able to come out and learn right alongside of you about the Bible. It is a great resource for us to use in order to live a life fully devoted to connecting with our Creator and loving everything that He created, humanity and the planet. So good evening to all of you who are joining in. Hi, Janet. Good evening, Bill. I hope you and Susan are doing well. It is a cold and chilly evening here in the South, wherever you all are. I hope that you're healthy and warm and safe. Hi, Rich. Wonderful to see you tonight. We have been going through the Sermon on the Mount. This is where Jesus is in Galilee. He is on the side of a mountain. He's talking to his disciples, and we're listening in, if you will, to what he has to say to them. Hi, Sonny. Good evening to you, sir. I hope everything is wonderful for you in the Northeast. I love seeing your grandbabies. They look so beautiful, and I love seeing you being a part of their lives, for sure. So Matthew chapter 5, we started off, it was kind of an introduction to this message that Jesus has to his disciples, and he saw the crowds that were coming around him in Galilee, and he went up to this mountainside and he sat down, and the disciples came to him and he began to teach them. And he talked initially in Matthew chapter 5 what it's like to live a righteous, holy life for God. And he said, blessed are the poor in spirit, and blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. He goes on to give what is diametrically opposed to what we would think a righteous life would look like. And we went through each one of these, which is commonly known as the Beatitudes. And but really what it comes down to is this is what righteous living looks like. And then Jesus says, these are the characteristics of what a God servant looks like, a servant of God looks like. And then this is what you're called to be, the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And so he talks about what that looks like and fulfilling the law that, he said, I didn't come to tear up the laws from the Old Testament. I came to fulfill them. And so then he goes back through a couple of those about murder, about adultery, about a divorce, about taking oaths. And then he basically says, love your enemies. Okay, so we started there. And we ended chapter 5 there where he says, love your enemies. And then last week we started into Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus then begins to outline what living a righteous life looks like. And so last week we went over giving to the needy, and Jesus came, and it came down to Jesus saying, what's your motive? Is your motive to be seen by others, and you're just out there, doing it? What are you doing it for? You out standing in the streets making sure everybody sees what you're doing? If that's all you're doing it for, that's all you're going to get. That's the reward. But that's not the life that God calls us to live. And so here, hey Ryan, good to see you tonight. Hi Susan, great to see you join in. David, I hope your meeting went well. So tonight, Jesus is going into, last week we talked about, hey, if you're going to do acts of kindness, okay, don't go standing up on a platform making sure everybody knows about it, right? But do it in a way that honors God. Do it with humility. And so tonight, we go into the next section that Jesus begins to talk about, which is how to pray. And we're going to land on this topic of prayer for the next couple of weeks, tonight and then the next couple of weeks, because I think there's a lot here to unpack But I'm just going to go ahead and dive in and read the verses that I'm going to give you for tonight. Hey, Albert, once this live video goes recorded, I'll go ahead and post a link for you. You can tap on it and go out and read these scripture verses for yourself. Tonight, I'm choosing to read in the New International Version. Hi, Alyssa. Great to have you join in tonight. This is coming from Matthew chapter 5. We're in Matthew chapter 6. This is verses 5 through 8. Jesus is saying to the disciples on the side of the mountain, "And when you pray, don't be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. I tell you, truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full," because they already got it right there. "But when you pray, go into your room." The Greek word for here is also storeroom, where you store up your treasures, okay? "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who's unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Don't be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him." So tonight, we want to talk about this topic of praying, where to pray. And then next week, we're going to talk a little bit about why do we pray if God already knows what we need? And then the following week, Jesus gives an example of how to pray. And so we're going to go through what's commonly known as the Lord's Prayer and what that looks like. Last week and this week, it was about righteous acts, how we're acting, and what our motive is. And here this week, it's what our motive is. What is the underlying motive for why we do what we do? Because that's what makes us hypocritical. I think we get a bad rap as believers in God when we go around running our mouth about things and then hurrying up and judging everybody else, and yet we're doing the same thing in other arenas. Do you think people don't pick up on that? Like, it's just so fake. If that's what they're seeing, who would want to be a Christ follower, for crying out loud? I know I wouldn't if I was seeing that. So, of course, I've matured out, and I'm reading the Bible for what it's worth. But I can't tell you how often I've seen people stand and say, "Oh, I hope they just became a Christian. They don't start telling people the wrong thing. They don't have enough time in the Bible. Oh, this person, their prayers are way holier than everybody else's prayers." Why? What makes them holier? So, because they go to church more? Going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. That's a quote from Nicky Gumbel, pastor in England. When you're praying, it is the attitude of your prayer. Where's your heart? It's not about the words that you're saying. It's about the heart of the matter. What is your posture? Is it rooted in having conversation and relationship with God, or is it rooted in pride because you want to show off before humanity? Are you there to impress others or confess to God? Are you wanting to be accepted by God or applauded by humanity? Pray in a private place. We'll see other areas throughout the New Testament where Jesus gives examples of how to pray, and we also see that he oftentimes went off to a quiet place by himself to pray to God. He walked away and went to a garden, went out, and most of the time he was outside. I mean, what a better place to get before God than in his own creation. And you don't have to be religious. This is not a religious forum here. This is about having a relationship with the Creator, that our energy spirit that is allowing us to move and breathe and have being in this flesh and carcass is connecting with the Creator, the energy of God. Hey, Eddie. Hi, Mitch. So when we are in a place of humility and sincerity, having a conversation with God, that we do that in a private place. Now, I know there's times for public prayer. I get it. When you're in a group and you want to pray for one another or whatever, I get that. But when you're out there standing on a platform for everybody to hear, and you want to say just the right thing, and you're putting in all the fluff words to make it look good and sound good and holy and everything else, not only does God see through that, but humanity sees through that. Just knock it off. And praying is as simple as you and I having a conversation. Hey, what's up? How was your day? What was exciting? The conversation that I have with God is where I can go to Him and say, man, I'm not feeling well today. I don't have the courage that I need to go and do what I need to do. And I'm asking that you help me to take up my courage so that I can walk into this meeting today and be confident, not in what I have, but in who I am in you. Because I know you've orchestrated this meeting for me, God. So be there with me and guide my tongue, guide my actions, and help me, Lord, so that I can get this contract for my business, because you know that I need it in order to further the things that you've called me to do. I pray in the car when I'm on my way. I have a conversation. And I say, God, I submit my spirit to you. Get me where I need to go. I was talking to my boyfriend tonight, and he said, you know, I was at the store with my son, and we were looking for something that he wanted, and we'd asked several people, and they said, no, we don't have that. And he said, and then, like, and I'm describing this in my own words, but the Lord dropped into him to go over to this other place to look. And he said, it just dropped into my head, you know, go over to this place. But God knew his heart. God knew William's heart for what he wanted to get his son, because his son had done something great, and he said, hey, what would you like to have? And, you know, and he said, oh, I would like to have this. And so they went to the store to get it for him, couldn't find it, but the Lord dropped it in his mind and said, check over here. And there it was, the exact thing that his son wanted. It did everything that he needed. It was a specific microphone for his gaming. And his son was happy. He was happy. Everything worked out. But it was the attitude of the heart that was taken into consideration. So I say to you, good evening, Sue. I say to you, as you're praying, it says not only to go into the room, but close the door. Like, you don't need to be in there so that other people can still see you, right? It's a private conversation that you're having. So take the time to be authentic with your conversation with God. Thank Him for, you know, the life that you have, for the breath that's in your lungs. And make your requests to Him. Have a conversation with Him. Let Him know the things that are bothering you. Next week, we're going to talk about, if God already knows what we need before we ask Him, why are we even asking Him in the first place? So we'll dive into that a little deeper next week. And then the following week, we'll talk about the model of praying with the prayer that Jesus gives us. But I think if we don't leave with anything else tonight, authenticity is what God seeks in our relationship with Him. And that relationship is unique for each one of us because He's created us each uniquely. So how I talk to God may be different than how you talk to God, but it's but it is a relationship conversation that we have. And not to say that, we can't have public prayer, but when you got puffed up and fluffed up about it, then it's no longer authentic, and then it becomes about you. And that's the last thing that prayer's about. It's not about you before humanity. It's about you before God. I hope that tonight's Bible study was encouraging for you. If it was, go ahead and like it, share it. You can copy the link, put it on your page, put it in Facebook Messenger to somebody. You can copy the link and put it in a text message, DM it if you want, or send it in an email. And until we meet again next week, love God, love others, and love yourself. Good night.